What's up, you guys? We've got an episode of here of Thinking with Mike, and today I have a very, very special guest, somebody I've known for almost, 3 years almost now?
Yeah.
2 or 3?
Yeah.
It's Michelle Christopher, and she has a phenomenal story that I've gotten to know over the last couple of years, and we've been able to buy and sell real estate together and watch each other's journey kind of unfold before us. Huge changes recently, too.
Which I'm digging.
Which we'll get into for sure. So we're just going to get into the story. We're going to talk about how real estate has kind of flexed into that, and then we're going to talk about the new ventures that you've gotten into recently and how that's going to not only affect your life, but the lives of everybody around you.
Yeah, that sounds great.
So where did it all start?
Well, it started actually when I was growing up. So in my early 20s, I was on welfare. I was living in Section 8 housing. I had a normal monthly check that I would get. And then, like I said, the subsidy. And so I'd have to pay my rent. And I was dating a guy who was renting a house. Okay. And the gentleman that he was renting from was telling us about it, how he would buy houses and then he would rent them and then he would make money off of them and then buy another one. And I was like, oh, to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But I just never thought that was for me.
Yes.
So then you fast forward, 10 years later, and I finally decided I'm going to try this. I have no idea what I'm doing. I didn't own maybe I'd owned a primary residence, but I'd never done this on my own. I'm just going to try it. So I started to talk to people who have done it. I didn't overcomplicate it. I think sometimes you can look at, you can take a look at spreadsheets and, all these acronyms and really get lost in the details. I just looked for a place that, what was the mortgage? And then how much could I charge for rent? And was that number green or not? Yes. So I didn't care. I think I made maybe $100, maybe not even $100 a month with my first.
But you got the asset and you actually got the house.
Yes.
And it was taking care of itself.
And it is my cash cow now.
God, isn't that cool? And what we're talking about here is the opposite of analysis paralysis. The thing just blast off and go and know that you're going to work it out.
Yes. I mean, it's just I was so scared. I remember when I bought it, I'm standing at the front door and I'm shaking and I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm going to throw up. I was so scared, but you just do it anyway. Right. Get scared.
God, isn't that it? So let's rewind a little bit. So we're talking about Section 8 housing. Where was your lift off? How did you get yourself lifted off from that?
So I got a job, and I started to save a little bit of money. And I thought that I had to buy my first primary residence. I thought I had to have a 20% down payment and it was going to be so much and it was just going to bleed me dry.
Yep.
And then I learned about FHA.
Yes.
And so when I found out it was 3%, then I was like, okay, this is something I could do.
It's an obtainable, achievable number.
Yes.
So we're in Section 8. We get a job. What kind of job?
I worked at Seagate. I worked at a factory. I was a factory worker making hard drives.
Oh my gosh. How long did that last?
9 months.
Okay.
It was overnight. So it was hard.
Yeah. Been there, by the way. I worked at a year overnight, and some people do this for 20 years. I don't know how they do it because it's so much against your natural rhythms that it feels like you're dying twice as fast.
Yes. And I was a single parent, so it was hard to take care of my son during the day. And then
holy cow, grinding all night and then coming home and being a mom.
Yes. I mean, literally grinding.
Wow.
I actually made discs. It was great. Yeah. No pun.
All right. So we get a job. We find this new target that's achievable. Because I'd say the hardest thing of buying real estate is just the big numbers that are involved, and everybody gets this idea of I need 20% down, and you see this massive 20% down number, and you go, that's just you add up the numbers, you're like, frickin' A, that's 15 years just to get that.
Yep.
How do I get there? Not to mention, while that 15 years is passing, prices are going up, and that number is actually getting bigger. So you find a more bite-sized 3.5% down mortgage amount, and you have something that you can tangibly work towards. How long does that take you?
Well, and I got to tell you a little bit about how I found out about it too, is because I had been telling myself this story that this is not for me. My mom did not own a home. And so, again, growing up poor, I didn't know how to buy a house. And so I'm like, this is not for me. And because it was a story that I was telling myself in my head, I believed it until somebody said, why don't you just go find out? Just go find out.
Yes.
Talk to a mortgage broker, talk to somebody talk to a lender and see what they say. Because then it's not this like pretend number that I have been telling myself that it is. It's actual facts.
Yes.
Like, this is how much you qualify for. This is how much you need down. This, then I was like, oh, wait, what? This is tangible. I mean, it is tangible.
It's something to actually work towards and not just like this vague can't do idea.
Yeah. And so I think that it took me probably, I bought my first house when I was 21.
Okay.
So I think all of that started when I was like 18. So maybe 3 years.
God, that's awesome.
But I didn't, when I was 18, I still thought it was not for me. And then I was like, why not ask? Like, why not try? Like, why not just ask somebody, get the data? And then if the answer is no, at least I have the numbers and I could tell myself no. But when I got the numbers back and I was like, I qualified. So that was the first yes that I had gotten in my internal story of no. I just needed somebody to tell me yes. Like, I just need yes. The answer is yes to you. Yes, you can do it. I did it. Anybody can do it. I'm not special. I'm not different. So here's your yes. If you need that, I need somebody to give me that yes.
Big time. God, that's probably half the battle is like, stop looking at things or stories as stories outside of your reality and realizing that you could be a part of that reality. That's insane. At 21, I had no idea it was that soon.
Yes.
That's my biggest regret is being like, I know I didn't have the greatest jobs, but I had enough to qualify had I just asked.
Yeah. Well, my investing didn't start then because that was just me buying my first house.
Right? But you might as well.
And I should say, because it actually did play into the story, I now have a 22-year-old that I'm like, buy a house right now, buy a house, especially right now in this market. I mean, everyone seems to think this is like, the people I talk to, they're like, oh, I don't want to buy. And I was like, oh, okay, great. Because then house prices are going to keep going down and I'm going to get a deal because I'm buying now.
Yep.
I'm buying. I just bought in July.
Yep.
And I'm going to buy in
deal, by the way.
February.
Yeah.
I know. I'm so excited about that. Thank you.
Yeah. Sweet duplex. Yeah. I think we're actually this perfect mix of like, I would lean more towards like analysis, and Michelle's like, freaking why not? Like, just go.
Gut.
Yeah.
Gut.
Just like do it.
Yep. Like if the numbers line up, you don't have to overcomplicate it. Like, well, and my gut is always scared. So I don't know why I say gut because I'm like,
you know how to override it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Totally. Okay. So you buy your first house. Then what happens between that period of time between then and when you start investing? Like what happens in your life? How do you scale it in that period?
I was married and then I went through a divorce and I gave him the house and then bought a townhouse on my own.
Cool.
So we did make a profit on that. It wasn't significant, but it was enough because again, I lived in the FHA space, 3%. So I was able to take the proceeds that I'd won. Yes. It felt like a winning.
It actually does.
When you get that check from selling your house, you're just like, yay.
Oh my gosh, like they're lottery style checks, and you're just like, what? Like I don't feel like I did anything to earn this. It just lived here.
Exactly, because I totally felt that way. Yep. So then I got to, then I bought my townhouse, and I furnished it. I bought myself like new furniture. I mean, I really gave myself something special, like a reward. Like I rewarded the accomplishment of, making a profit off of that.
Yeah, totally.
So,
and that's equally important. This is like the biggest balance in our house is to when to reward ourselves. I would like, and that's the coolest thing about being married, honestly, is that like I have this balance of my wife who's like, hey, we got to buy some stuff. We actually have to like zhuzh our home. And I'm on the other end, but what we could do with this. And so like, it's a very, very cool balance. And it's nice that at least my wife brings that to it. And it's so important because even when you have a really nice place to live in, you actually can outperform what that money would have done. I don't know, a little off topic, but
I do think that there is something to be said for that because I can tell you, so I bought a couple other houses. I have purchased 10 homes in my life. So 20 years old on welfare. I am now 45. I can admit that. I'm not afraid. And that is a real number. I'm not making it up. But and I have purchased 10 homes. Now I don't own 10. I've sold 6. So I now own well, actually I own 5, the one I
Nice.
live in, and then 4 rental properties. So I own 5 homes now, but yeah, so I do think that there is something to that you do have to reward take a moment and enjoy
Yep.
what you just did. Like it's
Otherwise, what are we working for? Like, you have to slow down and enjoy your life. That's why vacations are so important, honestly, like out that topic. If you don't take vacations, you just like get all clogged up and you can't think as well. Okay. So, bought your next house, then what?
So I bought my next house in 2008. For any of you who remember, see, it's that.
Yes.
That's the reaction.
Worst
you should
case
have.
scenario, right?
It is like the top of the market, and I bought it with interest only.
Oh my gosh.
Loan, which means I bought a house that I financially could not afford, and every payment that I made only went to interest. That the principal never came down. And I bought it at the peak of the market, which means I probably overpaid for. I shouldn't say probably, because I did lose money. That was the only house that I ever bought out of 10. So 10% of my asset, I lost money on.
How did that end?
Well, I met my current husband, and then we purchased a foreclosure.
Okay.
We purchased a foreclosure, and he was like, no. Like walking into this, like it was supposed to have white carpeting, but it was like it looked like a mechanic had lived there and never took off his shoes.
So this is so crazy that you mentioned this right now. It's that, like, when I think of showing houses out of the recession, I visualize stained, oily carpet. I don't know why, but every other foreclosure.
I think it's because the last house you sold me.
Probably was a freaking mechanic who did their work in the living room.
The duplex that I just bought needed some love and a lot of elbow grease.
Yes.
Or maybe less elbow grease than what was in it. But it's beautiful now. It's beautiful now.
Very, very nice.
But I could see it when I walked into this place, into the foreclosure. I could see it. Like I could see what it could be, just a little bit of paint. And I think sometimes people are afraid of, those cosmetic things. You walk in and you see like that, blonde wood or whatever that.
They call it honey oak.
That was like, what is that oak? Yeah,
Yep.
that they did like in the 80s and the 90s. And so I think people get a little intimidated, and it's just paint.
People rely like 99% on their vibe that they feel walking into a house. And it's like, yeah, your vibe's important. It really is, because it's where you're going to live. Like you should be checking it off, but you got to be closer to like 50 or 40% vibe. And the rest of it has to be like, hold on a second here. What could this vibe be after that?
Yeah, you got to imagine. You got to imagine.
That's what kills people in these properties and these opportunities, honestly.
Well, funny story about that, because I didn't realize like that, like home improvement doesn't have to be that hard.
Yeah.
One night, before we bought the foreclosure, my husband and I were like in our basement, and we were trying to figure out, should we put a bedroom down here or not? It was finished. And we had like a glass of wine, and we're sitting there and we're looking at this wall. Is it not? We don't know. And so I went into the other room, and I came back with my glass of wine in my hand, and I took the hammer and I stuck it into the wall. And the look on his face, he went white, and my husband's black, and he went white. Like he lost all color in his face. Like, what did you just do? I just intentionally put a hole in our wall.
Mm-hmm.
And then I made it a little bit bigger, and I looked up and I was like, nope, doesn't look like it's load bearing. And see, this is what those home improvement shows do to people like me. I'm like, I can do it. I can do it. So after the hole in the wall, we realized, it wasn't load bearing. We moved some things around, and we were able to put in
that is great.
a bedroom in the house that we lost the money on.
If it were going.
But yeah, exactly. But talk about like, that's just overcoming your gut.
Cool.
Yep. Sometimes you might need a glass of wine to do it.
Indeed. Right. Clean up the mistake you just intentionally made. No big deal.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool. Yep. Okay. So what's next? Tell me a little bit about your background life. What were you doing to elevate it there as well?
So I We
So
talked a little bit about my start.
I think career-wise, it's noteworthy because you guys two, you two are crushers in that light.
Yes.
And I think it's worth while to like describe like your move throughout and your moving up the ladder is very, very impressive in corporate United States.
Thank you
I
for
think.
that. I appreciate that. Yeah. So I went into technology. I did a certification and got a technology cert back in the 90s, the late 90s. Went and worked at a help desk and then started working my way up the ranks, stayed in technology, loved it. And then I just retired in July. I was a COO at a large financial firm, like fifth in the world or third in the world,
cool.
large. But so I was a COO and now I retired my 9-to-5 and I'm just doing fun stuff.
So here's the big question, because there's a big difference between those who get that career starting job back in the 90s you're talking about, and they're still working that 25 and 30 years later. What was the difference that elevated you throughout the corporate ladder? How did you continue to provide value and get people to actually notice that value?
So I wasn't afraid to tell the story. I think I just was brave. I think that we often see the challenges, the troubles of, what's happening like in your work. Like if you're doing your work and you're like, we could do this better. Like if we just stop doing this one thing. Well, we don't always communicate that up. I'm like, if we just change this one thing. Or I found the people who were influential to the decision makers. Because before I was the decision maker, I either had to, convince the decision maker that this was a priority and that they would get a return on investment if they made this change, or I found somebody who was influential to them.
So basically becoming a problem solver and letting people know about that problem solving.
Exactly.
When you help other people elevate their lives and their business and their problems, like you become invaluable. That's what that sounds like to me.
It's solutions.
Yeah.
It's just coming with solutions because so often we had so many complainers.
Wow.
Problems all day. Like that's all that I did.
Oh my gosh.
A COO runs the business. All I did was like put out fires all day. I had problem after problem after problem. So like it was so great when somebody came to me and said, here's a problem and here's a solution and we're going to go fix it. And I'm like, how much money do you need? Like, okay, bye.
See you later. Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. Like you actually just like lightened me in general. I'm just picturing like the amount of complaints that we get on general or in general are like extreme. But when you have somebody come to you with a solution, it's a light load and they come with like more of like a positive energy towards like fixing and creating it. Like that feels so right. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Freaking awesome. Okay. So real estate between that, what did you buy? How did you parlay it?
So I bought a foreclosure. I bought a 3,200 square foot house in Minnetonka for $280,000.
When?
09.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah.
Yep, that's real good.
And because it was a foreclosure and because I was not afraid of paint. And I did take out half of a wall. I opened up the kitchen to the dining room. So there was a half wall there. But so just overcame my fear. And then we sold that for over 4 years later.
Cool. What did you do with that?
We put it in to a lake house.
Nice. That's how we met, by the way.
That you sold.
Yeah.
Twice. You sold it twice.
Yes, I did. Anyways, that's actually a really fun story. We can get into that in a little bit here. But what did that lake home turn into?
Well, that was really fun because that it was a small rambler. It was 2,000 something square feet. It was original, it was built in the 90s, in the 60s, and it was all original. Even so, the people that lived there before they lived there, they loved it for 50 years and didn't change the drapes from when they bought it.
Oh my God.
So imagine the amount of history in dust bunnies that were in those drapes and the carpet. There was a rug that they had too. So that was the first 2 things that we, sent off to the museum to be archived. I don't know, whatever.
Yep.
Yes. But so we redid that house, and that one had the largest vision. I can go in, and now I trust my gut, and I can go into a house and be like, you should structure it this way to support the way that you live. And I love that. Mm-hmm. So, it took a little while to trust my gut on that. And so we did a huge makeover on that house, and then we sold it. We bought that for $665, and then we were going to live there forever.
Yeah. It was situated to be able to live there forever. It was very, very nice.
That was our forever home, and we made that decision when we bought it. And then my husband took a CIO job in Texas. And so a year and a half ago, we just moved to Texas and sold it for over $1 million.
Yeah. And that's honestly one of my biggest things about lake homes is that, one, they live, in my opinion, better than anything else.
Oh, they're lovely.
But they appreciate like nothing else.
Yeah.
Because there's a finite amount of it. That being said, the work that you did in there was the major reason for this sale. It was so when I got invited over to their house, I pulled up the old pictures from when you bought it, because that's all that was on the internet.
Oh yeah.
And so I'm just like getting all of my plans and like, okay, let's see if we can get her to go and do this and do this and that. And I go walk into this place, and it had been completely gut remodeled, like in the most perfect and like methodical way. Even the master she needed a couple extra feet, so she bumped the house out to make it movable. It was very, very cool. But I can tell that project came with love, and it came with a lot of wisdom that you gathered through that. Like, what a cool project to complete.
Yeah. And because I had redone a few since then, right? Yep. So this was my third opportunity to do that. So,
and when you do those things, you just kind of, your mind opens up to the simplicity of it, I should say.
Right. And I think that oftentimes right now, like as an investor and people, when I go to look at houses, when people redo them, I see people making smart decisions, and then I see people cutting corners. And that's the thing that I'm like, and it's simple things like add some caulk over here so that your seam isn't showing, or, paint this little thing right here so that it doesn't, it's little things, but these are people's homes, whether you're renting to someone or they are purchasing it. Like these people, this is their home. Yep. Their family is going to be there. They're going to have their friends over. There's a pride there. Like take the time.
Yeah.
Take the time.
Freaking cool. Okay. So what are you operating nowadays? What have you moved into now?
So, because I have these 4 rentals, I retired from my multi-6-figure, job, my 9-to-5, because I decided that I wanted to spend more time at home. I have a 6-year-old, and I want to spend my time doing more of what I want to do. And so I went and got a life coaching certification. And so now I coach people to overcome those fears that I had to overcome, right?
Freaking cool is
help them get over themselves, stop living small. Like so many of us just live small, and we're like, it's safe, but it's uncomfortable. Like we're so uncomfortable. So I just help people get uncomfortable in a different way.
That's so cool.
Live bigger lives.
Yeah. Create problems that are worth solving.
Yeah.
Almost. So coaching and mentorship is one of the coolest shortcuts that you can attach yourself to ever. And so because you get all of the wisdom of a life lived for all neatly packaged in nice little connection periods. So if you're listening to Michelle and you're like, holy crap, like that is a path that has been well lived and something that I'm currently on, like why wouldn't you strap into that and gather the wisdom of it?
Yeah. And take some of the shortcuts
I
got. Like you don't have to go down the path, I
can guarantee there's stumblings along the way that you would have not done.
Goodness. And I'm grateful for that gentleman who came to my house, to my apartment in Section 8 housing and gave me the dream and said, hey, you can buy real estate and let other people pay your mortgage.
Yes.
And it's going to continue to appreciate, and they're going to pay off it is like, I won on both sides. It took me over a decade to have enough courage to do that because I was so scared. But that's where that coaching and mentoring is. I'm glad that I had him.
Yeah. just that little bit of wisdom just sticks, and it can change the trajectory of your life like forever.
Yeah.
And such a beneficial. I mean, that's literally the difference between victim mentality and being in control. Like that's a very, very huge transition.
And all it is
Wow.
a thought in your mind.
Yeah, just
I
realize
just
this.
had to literally change the thought in my mind because I was thinking this is not for me. And I changed it to, I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
It was one sentence in my brain that changed the trajectory of my life. I could have lived my life the same way my mom did. I could have been comfortable and living in these small little places and renting forever because I didn't think home ownership was for me. And now I own 5. So
That's like awesome. Yeah, and they're both hard, by the way. So you might as well pick your hard.
Exactly. Like you can choose. You can choose. But I can tell you that it is harder to be without money than it is to have money.
I completely agree with you that. So I choose the heart of being able to fix my car whenever something goes wrong.
Yes. Oh gosh, I live those days where like I didn't have, I drove on my wheel. My tire popped.
Yep.
And I had to put the spare on with the donut, and I drove a Minnesota winter on a donut because I didn't have enough money for tires.
Option. God. And that's just those small things. Even like when a tenant calls me to fix something, there's a joy in being able to just cut the check and get it done immediately.
Yes. And you don't have to make it mean something. That's another thing. That is one thing that I do see with like people who are just starting this business. When they buy a property, they're like, how do I, like when something goes wrong, they panic about it. And it's the cost of doing business.
Yep.
Everybody has a cost to do business. These small shops that you see, going to a coffee shop, it's all the cost of doing business. And if you keep it like that in your mind, then you don't make it a thing. You don't have to stress about it.
Correct.
Like everybody's like, oh my gosh, what if? And I was like, you have the money.
Yep.
They paid for it. Your business paid for it. Your business can pay for it.
Comes right out of the business account.
Exactly.
It doesn't affect your life. Freaking awesome.
Exactly.
Extra handyman, it's taken care of. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, I think we can end it there. That's amazing. You guys, if you are looking for a little bump to get you through, if you're finding yourself like letting your thoughts stop what you're doing, like get in touch with Michelle. She would love to share this wisdom with you. You might as well. So thanks a lot for tuning in, you guys. Thanks for so much for coming, Michelle. She's from Texas and made a special little trip while she's here to come and do this. So this is like really, really cool, you guys. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thanks a lot. See you guys later.